When I first heard "Living on a Fault Line," I was blown away by Michael's material, and I really wanted to write with him. And that was early on in Loggins and Messina. And as I'm walking up to the front door, I hear dun 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 dun, which of course by then I was a huge fan, and I was like, oh my god, that's a great riff. And then he's singing before I knock on the door. He's singing, better do not below,
Kenny Loggins is one of the most defining voices in soft rock and the king of the 1980s soundtrack songs. He broke through with Jim Messina as one half of Loggins and Messina, with Your Mama Don't Dance and Danny's Song. And as a solo artist, as mentioned, he was a soundtrack king. There was Footloose from the movie of the same name, Danger Zone from Top Gun, and I'm All Right from Caddyshack. And he's become one of the most recognized voices in the history of American music, that's for sure. And we talk about him co-writing What a Fool Believes, which is really a strange but wonderful story. With Michael McDonald of the Doobie Brothers, it ended up being their biggest hit. That and a lot more with Kenny Loggins on Rock History Music. When I was in high school, someone came up to me and said, Kenny Loggins has joined the Doobie Brothers. I was going, no, he has. And he's co-wrote this big hit. I said, I've heard it, yes, for Minute by Minute, What a Fool Believes. I know you've told the story a million times, but how did that come to fruition?
When I first heard "Living on a Fault Line," I was blown away by Michael's material, and I really wanted to write with him. And that was early on in Loggins and Messina. And so it took a while to get to each other, but what I heard was that Michael was looking to write with me, and I was looking to write with him. So the managers arranged for us to write together at his house. And I remember pulling up to his house. By then I had my own guitar, and I'm getting my guitar out of the trunk, and the front door to his house is open. And I'm hearing him noodle on ideas. And later on, I would find out that he was showing Maureen, his sister, some of his new ideas, trying to decide what he wanted to show me, probably. And as I'm walking up to the front door, I hear dun 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 dun, which of course by then I was a huge fan, and I was like, oh my god, that's a great riff. And then he's singing before I knock on the door. He's singing, better do not below, which sounds a lot like Michael's verse. And then suddenly he stops, and my imagination kept going. And I heard what I thought he should have done next. So I knock on the door and I say, we introduce each other, and I say, dude, play that thing again. I think I know how the next part goes. So that G, D, 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 D is very much me. And so we just I like to say we were writing together before we met.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Your mind just picked up on it with the natural.
Because writing a song is like dreaming a song. You just sort of hear what you think it's going to be.
Was there a point in your career, Kenny, that you thought you could get to what you've achieved so far in your life? Was there a point where you kind of looked at the long road and said, yeah, this is going to work really well?
There's probably a couple answers to that, but the one that comes to mind right now is that when you're 18, you assume it's going to happen. Yeah. There was no doubt in my mind that I was going to have a career. I didn't know how long it would last. The first business manager that I met said, most of our artists have a 3 or 4 year run. So we'll do what we can with whatever you make in this 3 or 4 years. But nobody had, like, you don't imagine yourself as Johnny Mathis or Andy Williams. You're young forever, and the career is going to stay that way. And I remember running into, the reason I said Johnny Mathis, because I'm waiting in the waiting room of an AM radio station, and in walks Johnny Mathis, who's promoting his latest record, and he does not yet know that he's a dinosaur, because they're not going to play it. Yeah. It's a rock and roll station. They're playing whatever, Grassroots or whatever is going on at the time. And so that was for me a beginning of an awakening of going, I wrote a song called Where Did They Go When Their Hits Are Gone, which of course I never recorded, but it did strike me. It caught my attention. Like, what happens to the artists that had a couple, two, three hits maybe, and they have a career, and then suddenly they're gone. And so, but being young, I didn't really think much about that. That's not going to happen to me.
You must have splurged because there must have been a time where you went, man, this is a good living. Holy.
Well, right at the very beginning, Loggins and Messina, we were the darlings of FM radio, and we took off really quick. And so I'm a single guy living in a $65 a month house. I got nobody to spend it on. And, I bought my parents a place. But, when we started making real money, the first thing I bought for me was the BMW 3-liter coupe. A friend of mine was a race car driver. And I said, if you could have any car, what would you buy? And he said, that BMW. And I called my business manager that night with him still in the room. And I said, find me a BMW. That was my biggest rock moment of that era.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was such a great car.
Well, going back to what you said a while ago, I find it interesting age-wise. Sometimes I'll circle back and interview someone, I've interviewed them maybe in their 40s. And I come back and I'm interviewing them now. And again, they've got 10 years on me. And their attitude is completely changed in a good way, though, because they're watching, as Patrick Simmons would say of the Doobie Brothers, you can't cheat the hangman. They're watching. They're a little different. How would you look back at yourself maybe 30 years? Well, how about when it started cracking like big as a solo artist? Is there anything you tell that guy? Would you tell him anything knowing what you know now?
I'd warn him about women. But I wouldn't listen to him.
Exactly. Well said.
Right.
Of course he wouldn't listen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, congratulations on the at the movies. Whenever there's a compilation of any kind, I always find it's like looking back at a journal. It's an amazing feat to be able to look at this body of work. How did it feel for you?
Well, I'm just now. I got my first copy of the vinyl right here. This is the first time I've held it in my hand, and it has in the marquee. It has the song titles.
Yeah.
But it is. I forgot about a couple of these songs, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're forgettable. But I forgot them. Yeah. But it's encouraging to me to be able to put all these songs in one place and have it matter. It's not just, oh, please play my record, man. I mean, you already have. Yeah. And it's just sort of a celebration of that part of my career.
Did you you must have gone to the premieres and things, the movie premieres, right?
Yeah.
So was there one that stands out for you? Because there were a few.
Yeah, there's a few that stand out, but the most, I think, is the Footloose premiere. I did not know that they were starting the movie with that and ending the movie with that song. And so that whole thing with the feet going back and forth, those scenes at the beginning, Dean and I wrote Footloose for the scene in the middle of the movie where the kids leave town and sneak out of town and go dancing. So I didn't expect to see it at the top of the movie. And then to see it again at the end of the movie, he and I were both chuckling, going, slam dunk. Yeah. This was like, oh, we were seeing dollar signs float through the theater. Another good moment connected to Footloose is when I saw the remake of Footloose. And I knew that, now I'm blanking on his name, the big country star who remade Footloose. Blake Shelton, yeah. I knew that Blake Shelton had re-recorded the song. So I expected that version to be throughout the remake of the movie. And I'm sitting in the seats at this premiere, and the movie starts with a similar kind of foot-stepping thing, and I'm hearing the and I turn to my girlfriend and I say, man, they nailed my version. It sounds just like it. And she says, it is your version, stupid. It's like, I didn't know that was going to be in the movie.
By the way, in school, when you were asked to come, let's say when you were in 8th grade, I'm just curious, when they asked you to come to the front of the class and read something, how were you?
I was shy. I hadn't yet developed the performer's gene. I was in a Catholic grammar school, and the nuns came to me and said, "We want you to be the top altar boy to sing and to help at solemn high masses, where there's like 5 altar boys scattered all over the place." And the main solemn high altar boy guy has to go out in front of the school and sing from this book. Sing, oh, la, 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 da, 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 that thing. And I passed. I couldn't do it. It was like, I'm not going to get in front of the school and sing.
Remember, wherever you're watching this, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, please subscribe or follow. We'd appreciate that. And share our videos on social media in the appropriate groups. I know we're all members of rock groups or pop groups or yacht rock groups. Share our videos on there. It makes a big difference for us. But comment on our videos. We read all the comments. We love the comments. If you want to make a donation, there's always a PayPal link at the very top of all our YouTube videos. I'm John Bowden. This is Rock History Music. Take care of yourself.